Hello, you're watching the Great Canadian Bagel here, and today I have a re-upload of my next Nova Scotia election video, this time with audio. If you like my channel and you want to support the work I'm doing here, go down into the link in the description below and press that join button. Every little bit helps, and I greatly appreciate that those contributions. Even the bottom tier matters quite a lot. If you can't afford that, though, I understand, and just do your regular YouTube things like share, subscribe, and comment below. But with no further ado, let us begin. So, we're at the point in this election where things are pretty set. There's some waffling back and forth on seats. There's a few really close ones like Fairview here, Annapolis, Yarmouth, Bedford Basin. There's a couple of swing seats, if you will. But these swing seats, the four I named, basically have no impact on the actual outcome of the election here. Even if they all went against the PCs, they still win 40 seats, and which is a comfortable majority, considering they only need 31 for a majority. Actually they only need 28. Because there's 55 seats. They need 28 for majority. Apologize. Now, there's been some back and forth on popular vote. If we go here, we can see the PCs are down a little bit from November 11th, but they're up from November 4th, but they're down from the 28th. The 4 updates I've done this fall. That said, I think the 28th might have been overestimating the PC's position. So now hovering around 48 does seem to be more accurate to me. I think we're more likely sitting in this sweet spot here. And the one last thing I'll say on this here is this 0.56% is literally just the vote share that Elizabeth Smith McCrossan is getting in Cumberland North. That's not for all independents. That's literally just for the one independent that actually is going to win a seat. Well, that I'm going to touch on platforms. And if you don't want to talk about the platforms, skip to 15-ish minutes or so. I think that's how long it'll take me to talk about them. I will note here, just on the outset, I'm going to give you a values-free interpretation of platforms. If you want me to tell you, go through the platforms and say what I actually think, let me know in the comments. I could make that video. But in this video, I am just going to outline what the different platforms are and compare them across the 3 main parties in a way that is easier to understand and digest. Obviously, the sources for everything here is from the parties' websites, their platform documents, and their press releases. So if you want to see the source information, just go to the party websites. But with no further ado, let's start talking about platforms. Starting with, I will note here, so this left is the category. These categories are loose. Some things might not feel like they should fit in one category or another. I've kind of tried to gut them together based on the actual titular thing going on here, which I'll talk about more in some of the edge cases that are kind of weird. But starting with taxation, the PCs plan on cutting the HST by 1%. They want to increase the basic personal exemption by $3,000. And they want to reduce the small business taxes by 1% and raise the small business classification threshold from $500,000 of income to $700,000. The Liberals want to cut HST by 2%. They want to remove HST on prepared foods at grocery stores. So this would include your Sobeys rotisserie chicken or your taters or something like that you get at Sobeys or Superstore. But it would also cover things like pop or candy or granola bars. Pretty much everything that you would pay sales tax at the grocery store currently, you will no longer pay sales tax on at the grocery store. Now, there is a caveat on this that I think the courts won't actually like this proposal as is, and it might either be blocked or forced to expand it. And the reason why I think that is back when Sunday shopping was still banned in Nova Scotia, there was exemptions for some establishments, like Pete's Boutique was allowed to operate on Sundays, and the courts really did not like that special carve out existed, and the HST on prepared foods for grocery stores is a special carve out, and there is really no reason why chicken and taters at Superstore should not pay HST. But if you want to buy chicken and taters at like Mary Brown's or KFC or another mom and pop place, should pay HST. That seems really arbitrary, and the courts in the past have ruled against that. Will they do that again here? I don't know, but in the past they have actually ruled against that, so that is something to consider with that promise. Which, in likelihood, what that would likely mean is that would just end up repealing HST on all prepared food, period. Or they'd walk back on that promise, perhaps. But let us continue. And they want to increase the basic personal exemption by $7,000, and they want to have the exact same small business reform as the PCs. And the NDP, they want to create a gas tax holiday. They did not specify the duration of the gas tax holiday, but it would be suspending the 15.5 cent tax per liter on gasoline for whatever period of time that they choose for the holiday to exist. They want to remove the HST on heat pump purchases. They want to remove HST on phone bills and internet, and also the exact same prepared food proposal the Liberals have. They want to axe licensing fees for driver's license, license plate renewals, and basic ID cards. They want to create a refundable $1,400 tax credit for caregiving. So if you are taking care of a parent or like a spouse or something there's someone who needs a lot of support, you might qualify for that tax credit, which would be essentially reduce your income by $1,400 for purposes of taxation. And then finally, they want to reduce small business taxes by 1%, but they do not want to increase the threshold that counts as a small business. On affordability, the PCs want to provide free parking at healthcare facilities. They want to cap power rates to the Canadian average, and they want to raise the minimum wage from $15.20 to $16.50 an hour. The Liberals want to introduce more competition into power generation. They did not specify how. They want to expand the home heating assistance rebate program. They want to eliminate home energy assessment fees and increase rebates for heat efficiency programs. They want to make public transit free. They want to double the senior care grant. And they want to also provide free parking at healthcare facilities. The NDP want to make the Halifax Harbour ferries free. They want to tie income assistance with inflation and immediately increase it by 100 to quote-unquote catch up to inflation since it was last updated. And they want to also provide free parking at healthcare facilities. So I guess no matter what happens in this election, you'll have free parking at healthcare facilities. On climate, the PCs want to eliminate the carbon tax, assuming the feds let them. The Liberals want to eliminate the carbon tax, assuming the feds let them, and replace it with the cap and trade program that the Liberals introduced in 2017, and the PCs got rid of, I believe. Don't quote me on that. The NDP want to invest in transition to net zero buildings. They did not specify how or what mechanisms they plan on doing that. And they want to offer rebates for moving off coal and fossil fuels for home heating. On housing, I'll just put a caveat on the PCs. They are promising to basically continue their current plans, which I didn't really know how to phrase in this chart. And their current plans, by any objective measure, are very successful. You can look at the housing start numbers. They've increased dramatically in the last 2 years in Nova Scotia. So by any means, their current plans are working very well. They're promising to continue that, and the NDP and the Liberal plans would probably mess with that, with the current PC plans, but it's really hard to capture that in this platform. But I just want to remind everyone of that. But specifically, their new promises: lower down payment requirement for first-time home buyers from 5% to 2%. They want to make vacant land parcels available to communities for $1 if it is used to build affordable housing. They want to cut the provincial HST on new rentals, which would be a 9% tax cut on new rental construction. And they want to freeze development fees in HRM. Now, these last two you could have probably argued should be in the taxation column, but they're so specific to housing, I think it makes more sense to group them here. The Liberals want to establish province-wide zoning standards. They did not really specify what that means. And by that, I mean they did not have like a link to a document that was talking about what standard they meant. They want to set a goal of building 80,000 new homes by 2032. They plan on encouraging increased density. They did not specify how they wanted to do this. They want to eliminate the residential deed transfer tax, except for out-of-province buyers. They want to revise and lower property taxes. The revised part here is they don't like how a lot of the assessments are currently. So this doesn't necessarily mean your property tax bill would go down, because it might revise your property value higher, but the rate would go lower, if that makes sense. So your rate would be less, but your property tax may or may not be less, depending on how your assessment would change based on their revision. They want to build 500 mini homes to eliminate tent cities. They did not specify where they want to build these homes. They want to establish rules for rent control based on vacancy rates. So to clarify on this one a little bit, right now, the rent control is basically just set at the whim of the cabinet. And here they want to establish like strict guidelines for when rent control comes in, limits and stuff, and it'd be based on vacancy of municipalities across the province. They want to abolish fixed-term leases longer than 1 year, and they want to lower the rental supplement cutoff back to 30%. The PCs raised it to 50%, and they want to revert that change. And basically what this means is if right now 50% of your income if rent is 50% or more of your current income, this would give you a subsidy, and they want to bring that threshold down to 30% of your income. The NDP want to reduce rent control cap to 2.5%. It's currently 5%. They want to abolish fixed-term leases, and they want to provide an annual housing rebate of up to $9,000 for households with less than $70,000 in income. Now, that is going to be a scaling rebate, and it's going to have clawbacks. So at $69,999 household income, you will not get $900. Presumably, you'll get a lot of money at like zero income. On quote-unquote women's issues, this is kind of a nebulous category, but these are all related to women, so I guess we're gonna run with it. PCs want to create Canada's first menopause center. The Liberals want to increase the number of spots available for women to study trades at NSCC. They want to require 50% of all research funded by the provincial government be used to study women's health. All health research. I will fix that. All health research funding. They want to expand NSCC's Women's Unlimited program. I don't know what that means. I might have written that down wrong. You can check the platform if you want an explanation of that. They want to spend $4 million to help fund women's shelters. That is replacing $4 million in funding that the feds got rid of. And they want to require both vertical and horizontal pay transparency. They did not specify how. They were going to require this to be done, but they want that to happen. The NDP want to reduce crisis pregnancy centers, and they want to provide free menopause treatments. On healthcare, and when I say free menopause treatments, I mean they want to provide, there's currently some treatments, I guess, that you have to pay for out of pocket. They're like pharmaceutical treatments. They want to make those free. On healthcare, the PCs want to establish an internal traveling nursing team. They want to make the shingles vaccine free for all Nova Scotians 65 and older. And they want to make a new medical school campus at Cape Breton University. The Liberals want to increase annual incentive for physicians from $5,000 to $10,000 if they join a collaborative care practice. They want to introduce bonus up to $15,000 for other health professionals who commit to work as a collaborative health clinic for 5 years. And they want to give up to 20% of an in-demand health professional's student loans annually for up to 5 years. They're going to recruit more physician assistants and build 3 new diagnostic centers. And I forgot to mention for the PCs here, they are also promising to continue their current plans as is with regards to healthcare. So there's plans of recruiting doctors and all that stuff that they've been doing the last 2 years. The NDP want to open 15 collaborative family doctor clinics per year. They want to lower the cost of home care and cancer drugs with the Nova Scotia Pharmacare program. They want to offer new recruitment and retention incentives for healthcare professionals to stay in Nova Scotia. They did not specify what those would be. They want to provide free contraceptives, eliminate seniors' pharmacare premiums, waive deductibles for prescription drugs covered by family pharmacare. They want to make PrEP, the HIV drug, available to anyone. They want to fast-track long-term care beds for seniors. They did not specify how that was going to happen. On abortion, the NDP want to make a surgical abortion available across the province. On LGBT, the NDP want to implement the 2S LGBTQIA action plan. They did not specify what that is or link to a document saying what that is. On immigration, the Liberals want to ensure immigration targets are focused on growing the number of professionals in critical areas. They did specify the critical areas in their platform. I did not copy them here for brevity. On infrastructure, the PCs want to eliminate the tolls on the McDonald and McKay bridges. They want to build highways around the HRM to reduce congestion. And they want to explore rail routes from Windsor to Mill Cove, Bedford, and the Cape Breton Regional Municipality. The Liberals want to spend $300 million in Cape Breton Regional Municipality over 4 years on infrastructure things like highways, roads, bridges, hospitals, schools, all that kind of stuff. They specify all the things in their platform if you care. They want to replace the McKay Bridge, though they did not specify exactly how they plan on doing this, or at least not to a satisfactory standard to me, though they did give a timeline. It would not be one term, obviously. Building a bridge these days takes way longer than 4 years. And they want to look into where building LRTs, so light rail trains, would be most effective. Basically, they're probably going to do the exact same thing the PCs will do regarding trains. And the NDP want to double the Cape Breton Regional Municipality Finance Grant. On childcare, the PCs want to open 6,000 more childcare spaces, and they want to reduce fees for daycare by 50% by 2026. Those first two are for 2026. They want to introduce a school. I think they actually already did this, but it was in their documentation, so we're putting it here anyways. They want to introduce a school lunch program for elementary students. The Liberals want to negotiate with the federal government to allow more private daycare operators to participate in the $10 a day program. And the NDP want to provide more childcare in underserved areas. They did not specify where or how they determined that. On employment, the Liberals want to ban non-compete clauses. On public safety, the PCs want to hire two police officers to work with the Department of Education on security protocols, incident prevention, and incident response. This is in relation to the rising violence in schools. And the NDP want to act on the Auditor General's recommendation to reduce school violence. They want to ban the use of non-disclosure agreements regarding sexual assault and other things related to that. I'm not sure all the fine details on that, but I do know at least some MLAs like Elizabeth Smith McCrossan have been talking about this quite a bit. And the NDP want to fund an organization to fight intimate partner violence. It's not very clear how that would help in their own documentation. But they're going to fund that organization, and that organization will do something. They did not really clarify what that something was going to be. That actually took a little longer than expected, but that is the gist. If you want my opinion on these, let me know, and I can make another video where I talk about my actual opinion, but that is just the value-free summary of the platforms. And with that, we can discuss my poll results. So my poll results is captured here. One momento. So my poll results, I get roughly these numbers here. I have the PCs at 48 across the province, NDP at 28, Liberals at 19. I had a sample of 134 Nova Scotians, which is pretty good, but it obviously is a little less than other pollsters are doing. They're usually going for 400-600, but 134 is not terrible. I am roughly within margin of error of all the other pollsters. So this poll is reasonably good, even if you do not trust my record, which has been pretty good so far in BC and Saskatchewan. I will note as the person who did this, I'm a little skeptical of my Halifax numbers. I think I oversampled the Halifax Peninsula and Dartmouth, and I undersampled the exurbs and suburbs. So I suspect the NDP might be overstated and the Liberals understated. PCs I'm unclear about, but the Liberals might be a bit higher and the NDP might be a bit lower. But we will see. We'll discuss this more when I do a post-mortem. That's just a matter of sample sizes, and I'm pretty sure I'm within margin of error, which is 12%, so I hope so. It's a pretty large margin of error. I will note on these different regions, my raw samples are pretty small, 10, 11, 11, 13, even 20, are actually technically below the statistical significance margin, so I should have grouped these together. I didn't because I'm biased and I'm Nova Scotian, so I want to break this out more. Naturally, the PCs are doing the best in most of the province. South Shore, Annapolis Valley, Fundy Northeast, which is like Cumberland, Colchester, and East Hants. North Nova Scotia, which is Pictou and Antigonish counties, and Guysborough County. And obviously Cape Breton is Cape Breton. So overall, it's pretty much what you'd expect. The PCs are dominating everything but Halifax, and they're competitive in Halifax. The Liberals are pretty much lost with nowhere of... They have no clear strength anywhere except a little bit in Annapolis Valley. And the NDP are pretty much lost except Cape Breton and Halifax. If we go by age demographics, or demographic breakthrough, this kind of makes sense here. The PCs do best with men. They do best with people with 100,000 plus household incomes. Interestingly, my poll has them doing best with young people and worse with the older people. Most other pollsters have it the opposite, but my numbers work out so they're roughly the same as every other pollster, so I'm not sure what's going on there. But clearly my numbers, the maths, but the age brackets are apparently flipped, but it is what it is. Maybe it's a case of sample sizes, or sampling bias perhaps. But we will see. We don't really have any... Canadian polls or elections don't usually have reliable exit polls, so we can't really compare these in any meaningful fashion. The Liberals do best with women, old, the elderly, and the poor. So apparently the stereotypical Liberal voter this election would be the retired, fixed-income woman. The NDP have pretty much no obvious strengths except among middle-income households. Which is interesting because the NDP are promising almost nothing to help most of middle-income households, but hey, apparently it works. That could also just be noise, though, because again, the margin of errors here are high. 14, 15, 17, so there's some noise here. So obviously take this with some salt, but this is pretty similar to what most other pollsters are reporting, so it's probably accurate. The most interesting one I have here is this is 2021 vote share across the top. I will note here there's a divide by zero error. That's because I actually had 0 green voters respond to my poll. So I just assume they're all going to vote the same way again. It is what it is. Most of these make sense. PCs, NDP, spot on. What's quite interesting is the Liberals, the Zach Churchill's only retaining 49% of 2021 Liberal voters. Most of them are breaking Conservative. The other thing that's quite interesting is new voters are heavily breaking PC, 51 to 29. Quite remarkable right there. The Liberal numbers have a very large margin of error, so take that with some caution. For some reason, where I can usually get a decent sample of NDPers, I always have a struggle to get a good sample of Liberals. So take some salt with that. But overall, the numbers do kind of track. Perhaps the low sample of Liberals is why my poll has Liberals lower than other polls. But I can only do so much. It is a random sample. You can only weight people so hard when only 9 respond. Now on to approvals. This is the first time I've done approvals before. So Tim Houston has pretty strong approvals, especially in rural Nova Scotia. He has a net positive in every region except Halifax, and he's statistically tied in Annapolis Valley area. He has quite a high neutral number of 22% in pretty much every region except North Nova Scotia, where he's from, has a roughly 22% neutral. So a lot of people either like or have no strong opinions on Tim Houston. Only 38% dislike him, and that 38% is concentrated in Halifax, the Annapolis Valley, and Cape Breton. He has a 97% name ID, which is unsurprising as the premier. Claudia Chender, on the other hand, has pretty terrible approval ratings in rural Nova Scotia, having high net negatives in every single region except Halifax. Even in Cape Breton, where she has a decent approval of 25%, she still has a net negative of 26%. She has a quite high, or a fairly low, name ID of only 83% know who she is. And most of her voters are concentrated in Halifax. It's not surprising, though, with 32 approve and 26 neutral, that she's doing quite well in Halifax County itself. Cape Breton, with 25 positive, 15 neutral, she's doing okay. And then Zach Churchill. This is very clearly why the Liberals are doing very poorly, in my opinion. Almost as many people don't know who Zach Churchill is as like him. He has a name ID of 82% and only a 19% approval rate. He has net negatives in every single region in the province, and he has a very high neutral rate, which in some senses might be a good thing. It says he has a lot of room to improve, but we are, over the course of the election, the 2 weeks I was surveying, he had no meaningful trend in approval. So it is not looking good for him in that regard. Overall, you can really kind of see where this kind of goes wrong for the Liberals. One thing I want to stress here is I strongly suspect the Liberals are actually still the main opposition party to the PCs, even though the NDP is apparently polling 9% higher and is doing better in seat counts, as my map shows. And the reason I believe this is very strongly to do with the distribution here. The NDP are slightly outperforming Claudia Chender's approvals. Not surprising. But even with that, they have a dismal performance on mainland Nova Scotia, and they only do okay in Cape Breton, and they do fine in Halifax. That's not really much position for them to grow from there. They can probably pick up a few seats in Halifax if everything conspired to go the correct way. They could probably pick up Fairview. They could probably pick up Clayton Park West, maybe. Maybe they could pick up parts of Dartmouth outside of the circumferential. Very unlikely they could pick up Bedford. And at this stage, very unlikely they could pick up places like Sackville. They definitely could not pick up places like Fall River. And outside of the HRM, they really don't have much support anywhere. You look at, say, Fundy Northeast, where traditionally they have done a little better. They only have 13%, so they're doing terrible in places like Truro or East Hants. And out in Cape Breton, they really only have 2, maybe 3 seats they could even meaningfully compete in. And everywhere else, they are a dismal, irrelevant footnote of a party. The Liberals are doing pretty bad everywhere, but that's really because Zach Churchill's doing really bad. No one likes him. If they replaced Zach Churchill with a more popular leader, or at least a leader with a higher name ID, they would probably be doing better. Because if we go back to here, he only has 19% approval, and 18% don't know him. If he had 100% of the population knew him and he kept this ratio, he would be sitting somewhere in the 23-24% approval. And if you then adjust them up 3-4 points across the province, you're suddenly seeing the Liberals, to go back to this map, you're seeing them hold Yarmouth, you're seeing them hold Annapolis, you're seeing them hold Bedford Basin. They gained 3 more seats right there. They're the second place in pretty much every part of rural Nova Scotia. So even though this is a terrible performance for the NS Liberals, this is actually honestly a worse performance for the NDP. This is their one chance in the last 10 years to really set themselves up for something for 2028, and they're not. Claudia Chender is completely failing campaign-wise to go anywhere. She's just kind of holding her own base against the rising tide of Houston, which is not good, because if she's barely holding her own right now, when the Liberals have one of the worst performances and one of the most lukewarm leaders they've had in my lifetime, when the Liberals elect a different leader, perhaps a better leader, things could change very rapidly. So this is kind of, I think, a similar situation we had in Quebec in 2022, where the Parti Québécois only got a few seats, but they were still the main opposition party because they're the only party who had the chance to actually gain ground in most of Quebec. Here, the Liberals are really the only party who has a chance of winning ground in most of Nova Scotia. Other than the PCs, obviously. Maybe if the NDP decide to focus more on less urban issues, because half their platform is things that really only affect Halifax, or if they walk away a bit from the social progressivism in their platform, they could probably do better in rural Nova Scotia, because for some reason, a lot of people have this idea that rural Nova Scotia isn't socially conservative, but it is very socially conservative. They're very economically interventionist, but they're most certainly not socially liberal. But that is what it is. With that, I'll bid you guys adieu, and I will see you Monday with something else.